So the easiest problems that you can ever solve are ones that you've encountered before, because you see the telltale signs of like, oh, I know when this happens. Yeah, if I pull this pin, all the water comes flowing out, right? You can go like, am I going to pull that pin again? And the harder ones are the ones where you have to anticipate and look forward. But the looking back is really super helpful in something that I do, like for the anacrusis of like, where did I make mistakes? What could I have done better? What don't I ever want to do again? But a lot of times when looking back, people become confused and they mistake that somehow in the past the answer was solved, ignoring the context of what was happening. And then the other thing is people lose sight of the goal. And I'm going to tell you, if you're a young game developer or any game developer, the goal is to make games. The goal is to make games. So I want to read something from YouTube because the comments are hard to show here, but is a really good example of somebody who is applying lessons from the past that don't work anymore, and equally their goal isn't to make games. Because remember, there is a whole host of people online who have no care to play games, consume games, or even make games. They just want to tell you how you should consume them, how you should buy them, how you should play them, right? It's a whole weird thing. So I'm going to read this because people tell me I'm making stuff up. So I'm going to read this, and you can go into the comments. It's for the video called Physical Media. And so he's responding to that. This is Tommy Han USA. No, Physical Media does not stop indie developers. So he's answering my question. He's saying no. Okay, hey, all right. We got a disagreement. I'm good for that. Let's dig in. Look, if tiny local bands that you never heard of can find their ways to get their music on CDs, I'm pretty sure indie developers can too. The problem isn't putting it on CDs. And yeah, games you do not want to put on a CD. The problem is, like, okay, let's look at music. Let's look at music. Because it's not about putting it on CDs. Because back in my day, in 1990s, when we toured through the south of the band, when we pressed singles on wax. And sorry that at the end of the tour, those were all kind of warped because it was an air-conditioned van in the south in the summer. Man, what we know. But like that was the way you did it. And we could hand them a 45 and they could play it. If I hand you a 45 now, oh yeah, the hipsters can play it, but most people can't. If you hand me a CD now, I can't play that. And yeah, Kanye. God bless his soul. Missed the guy. But most people don't hand out CDs. Okay. Parma, if you're from Parma, you know who I'm talking about. Okay, so that's not the problem. That's not the problem. Okay, so then he said, Doom was essentially an indie release and worked on a shareware model that made most of the money from people buying the game directly from them. I don't think you can sell 10 million copies that way, but I think it's possible with an indie with a lower overhead to have a physical release model and still be profitable. Indies don't have to go through retail. So retail is out in this person's eyes. So first of all, retail is your biggest place that you get marketing. And in fact, in the Physical Media post, a lot of people talk about walking through the shelves and finding games, and that's how they found games, through the bargain bin or whatever. And so being in retail is gigantic. The other part of retail, especially on Steam, PlayStation Store, Xbox, is store placement. There is how you get most of your traffic. No matter what I do, I get most of my traffic from Steam. That's why wish lists are important, why being on like sales are important, being on special lists are important, all of that, because that's the most important place that you can advertise your game, because that's where people are. That's where they, especially on the PC, and we'll get to why you're talking that you only want to sell on PC, because that's where people on the PC play their games, is on Steam, overwhelmingly. Yes, there's other options, but overwhelmingly that's where people are, and how you advertise to them is actually on Steam itself. And yeah, you can take out ads and stuff, but hey, you're only selling physical goods and not a digital good, so why would you advertise on digital and be like, and hey, click this Google ad and now fill out this envelope? Like, are you allowed to have a website in your dream? Or do people just mail you money? Because chargebacks suck, because you're gonna have to handle that, because you're your own retail, you're rejecting retail. But how are people finding out about you? Because like, I sold games. I sold games back in the 90s. Old Man Murray started selling games. And we did that because I found an ad in the back of Computer Shopper magazine, the big giant magazine. This is the coolest thing. But there aren't magazines anymore. So where are you advertising offline for your offline only store where people are going to mail you money? Or are we allowed to go online to buy things? Because I kind of think you need to go online to buy things, but then you just can't buy it online because people hate that, right? And yeah, and that worked for Doom back in the day, but Doom started, or it started, by making games for other people for shareware discs. That shareware discs used to get mailed out. So maybe you have a bunch of shareware discs that you're sitting on. I can't play physical media on my computer. I have nothing to plug into it, right? I download everything. So most people on PCs nowadays, when you buy a new PC, they no longer have a DVD drive. So I don't know what you're going to do there. Here's your problem, though, if you're saying like, well, I'm going to be the console guy. Well, you can't. So first of all, you need a kit, and you need to be registered with Sony or Xbox to sell on them. And then you need to submit to certification, and that is done online because it's more convenient. I don't even think they do physical anymore. We used to do physical. We used to run the discs over to Microsoft. But I don't think that works that way anymore. So you're stuck there. So, and I don't think I've seen anything on the Xbox Store or PlayStation that isn't also available on digital, because that's how people want to buy their games. But you don't care about games. You care about making CDs or DVDs, right? So here, anyone with a Blu-ray burner can make physical media. That is true. Again, it's not about the media. If you want a service to do it for you, you're looking at $3,000-ish for 1,000 CDs. So $3 a CD. And to mail them out and such. No, I think you're mailing them out. Yeah, you're going to have to charge more to provide it, but AAA is $70 now. You could easily charge half that and still be profitable with like 100 or so sales. So 100 or so sales is $35, which is half of 70. I know math. It's $3,500. And he's saying that's profitable. Now remember what he's saying here, because it's a tell. He's not saying your game will be profitable. It's the pressing of the CDs will be profitable. You still have all the cost of the game making. And now you've encountered that you have to advertise offline, deal with all the chargebacks, but you cannot accept credit card because everyone's doing that online. So I guess you got to get the change counting machine. I don't know, dude. Digital is still going to give you a decent profit margin for less work, but physical media is still possible for small developers and isn't stopping anyone. It's still possible, sure. And I could write my own engine, but first, before I do that, I can go back, I can make my own RAM, I can make my own CPU and motherboard, and I can fuse it together, and yeah, sure, it is possible, but why would you do that? It is hard to make a game. It is super hard to make a game. Now, you could be the cool bro, and you're just like, hey, all my life, all I've wanted to do is hold a CD, that's my game, and this is how I'm gonna do it. Rock on, you can do it. No one's stopping you, that is true. But if you actually want to play games, if you actually want people to play your games, this is a good way not to have that happen for all the reasons I listed, and you're kind of going to ignore them, and that's cool. But remember, developers, what's your goal? Is your goal to serve a group of people who don't play games, but talk about things like physical media and how they have to have it, have to own it, otherwise they're not going to play it? Or do you want to make games where people are, where they're playing it, where they're playing them for tens of years now and having a great time and experiencing all of this, right? Again, there's just a group of people who don't want you to play games, don't want you to experience games the way you want to, and they want to be gatekeepers of it because they want to be grumpy old men. I don't want grumpy old man, but not in this way. Not in this way. Man, it'd be crazy to make 1,000 CDs for your game and then start handing them out and finding out that nobody can play it. Don't do this. Please don't do this.